Hey folks, Erick Stakelbeck here. Welcome to the Watchman Newscast. We are here on the Stakelbeck Tonight set in Dallas, Texas, and I just interviewed my good friend, Lieutenant Colonel Jonathan Conricus. Now, Jonathan, you may have seen him Fox News, elsewhere across the media. Jonathan is a former spokesperson for the Israel Defense Forces and currently a senior fellow at FDD, the Foundation for Defense of Democracies in Washington, D.C., a great organization. And they don't come better than Jonathan when it comes down to breaking down the state of play in the Middle East, the world's most strategic and volatile region, and really breaking down why it impacts you, no matter where you live around the world. Now, we've said that 2025 is the year of reckoning when it comes to Iran's nuclear weapons program. I believe by the end of this year, folks, we will have a very good idea which way this is going. Either Iran breaks out, they go the North Korea route, they develop the ultimate deterrent, they announce they have the bomb, or Israel, the U.S., or perhaps both together working in tandem, destroy Iran's nuclear weapons facilities. I don't really see another option right now. Now, there are other options being thrown around. President Trump has said, look, military is the last option. I'm the deal maker. I want to solve this diplomatically. But folks, I believe, although he has the best intentions, of course, I don't believe Iran is going to abandon its nuclear weapons program. I think Iran, either way, though, is vulnerable here in that if they somehow agreed to give up their nuclear program, which, again, I don't think they'll do unilaterally. Some have described this as the Cuban Missile Crisis in slow motion. If they gave up the program, that may embolden the Iranian people to finally rise up, because they're showing weakness, of course, the regime. That may embolden the Iranian people to finally rise up against their oppressors. And if they don't give up the program, the nuclear sites are struck and they look weak there as well. And again, hopefully the Iranian people will rise up. The Iranian people, who, by the way, are the biggest victims of this wicked regime that has ruled Iran with an iron fist for 46 years now. So the chess pieces are moving on the board. And Jonathan Conricus and I broke it down. Again, he is one of the best when it comes to analyzing the Iran nuclear crisis and what comes next. Take a look. Former IDF spokesperson and senior fellow at FDD, Jonathan, always great to see you, my friend. Hey, let's start with Iran. We've had well over a decade now of failed diplomacy with the mullahs. What are the options at this point for Israel and the U.S.? It seems like there's really only one option left.
Yes, hello, shalom, Eric. Thank you for having me on. Always a pleasure. And shalom to all of the people who are watching us. So in terms of options, there are a few options, various degrees of bad. Let's go through them one by one. One option is that the Iranians somehow cast some kind of magic spell on the U.S. president, and they get a short and very good deal for them, short negotiations and a quick deal that I think could be disastrous for the region. And I really hope that doesn't happen. A second option could be that there are long and protracted negotiations through which the Iranians will basically play for time and wait till this American administration runs out of steam or interest or out of electoral power, and then continue with their nuclear programs. Three is, of course, the third option of no negotiations and no deal. And fourth, I think, is the one that I think we are closer to now than we've ever been before. We may not be there yet totally, but we are closer than we are before. And that is, of course, to use military capabilities in order to take this piece off the chessboard and make sure that the Iranian regime never achieve nuclear military capabilities.
Yeah, great breakdown, Jonathan. And those nuclear capabilities would be a threat not only to Israel, but to the world. And it seems, look, with Israel having largely smashed Iran's ring of fire, including Hamas and Hezbollah, Iran's air defenses have largely been destroyed. It seems like this would be a golden opportunity to take military action against Iran. Do you see that as well, that this may be an ideal time?
Yeah, Eric, while I agree with you that we've made progress against Iran's ring of fire and terrorist organizations that they built around us, Hamas and Hezbollah, unfortunately, we still have a lot of work to do in order to be free and safe in our homeland. And yes, you are right, Iranian air defenses are weaker than they were before the 7th of October, but they still have significant air defenses that would be a challenge even for the Israeli Air Force. But I do agree with your bottom line, Eric. This is probably as good as an opportunity that will ever present itself for Israel to do what it needs to do in order to defend itself. And I think that if we, as in the world, US, Israel, with the support of European countries, if we don't find the political will and courage and leadership to actually take action, that is something that we and future generations will regret. And, I don't think that it's ever a good thing to go directly and first for a military solution.
Yeah.
But I think that, as you say correctly, we have been through about 15 years of diplomacy, and we are still at the situation where the Iranian regime are just a short sprint away from having a nuclear weapon, and that needs to be prevented by any means necessary.
How much of a factor in this is President Trump's return to office? He warned Iran just the other day they will be bombed like never before, and I think I'm quoting directly there. How much of a factor in this, the ultimate outcome with Iran's nuclear program, is Donald Trump's return and his stance towards the Ayatollahs?
Yes, what really matters here in this equation is what does the Iranian regime understand and how credible do they think that the threat to use military force is. And I think that the calculus for the Iranians changed after President Trump was elected, and after President Trump is on record saying and repeating various statements that are very clear about where he stands. It's also important that the U.S. military, CENTCOM, Air Force, and strategic assets have been utilized or mobilized in such a way that indicates to the Iranians that it's not only talk, but that there is military hardware and capabilities backing up those statements. But soon, rather than later, we will come to a point where the Iranians will continue to stall and play for time and lie and deceive and do kind of things that they've been doing successfully for 15 years in order to derail negotiations.
Yeah.
And then eventually decisions will have to be made. I hope that Israel and the US will have the kind of leadership that understands that now is the time. This is a historic time, I think. And if we do not take action, we will regret it. And I hope that Israeli and American leadership and the defense establishments will be able to do what's necessary.
Well, it seems Hamas is also dragging its feet and rejecting U.S. ceasefire attempts in Gaza. Meanwhile, the IDF has had no choice but to ramp activities back up in Gaza. What is the state of play there right now? And will we eventually see the destruction of Hamas and their elimination as a threat to the Jewish state?
You're absolutely right. Hamas is refusing to come to the negotiation table. They are just, I think that they feel that they are confident enough. They have Egyptian support, they have Qatari support, and I think that they believe that if they just hide long enough under the tunnels, in the tunnels underground, then Israel will run out of steam. International pressure will be brought to bear on Israel, and they will be able to eat the cake and have it, as in continue to rule and govern Gaza, be there for the day after, and keep Israeli hostages. 59 hostages, 24 or 22 are believed to be alive. Almost a year and a half in Hamas captivity in those tunnels, enduring all manners of torture and horrible experiences. We know that from survivors and hostages that have come out. And the sad situation is that, yes, Israel has ramped up military activities, but as of when we're speaking now, that has not yet had the desired effect. There will come a time, and I think it's not very far in the future, where the fork in the road will be whether Israel decides to go all in with lots of troops on the ground, with massive bombarding campaign in order to really eradicate Hamas and to really defeat them and win the war. We have not yet done that. We're still holding out and hoping to create the conditions to get our hostages back. But at the end of the day, that time will come. And when it does, it'll be extremely violent and extremely challenging. One last word, watch out for Egypt. All eyes should be on Egypt because they hold the key to the future of Gaza, and they're the ones who single-handedly can save Gazan civilians from the horrors of war. If they allow to open the gates, if they do the right thing to do, the compassionate and humane thing, which is to open the gates and allow Gazans out, they can save a lot of people from unnecessary suffering and possible death. If they continue to keep those gates closed, that means that they have responsibility on their shoulders for the killing of Palestinians. And I think that's something that isn't said enough. And Egypt should have responsibility and accountability for their actions.
Jonathan, great point there. Look, it's the largest, most populous, I should say, Arab nation. Some say as Egypt goes, so goes the region. So great point there. We will be watching that very closely. Moving to the north, we're also watching Syria very closely. Over the past few days, the IDF has carried out some pretty serious airstrikes against former military outposts, I should say, of former dictator Bashar al-Assad, to prevent them from falling into the hands of this new jihadi regime in Damascus. Number one, how concerned are you about that new regime in Syria? And number two, Turkish involvement in Syria.
As always, you touch on exactly the correct topics. So what Israel is trying to do is to send a message to two different recipients. One, the new landlords in Syria, HTS, a former U.S. designated terror organization, where Israel is basically saying, we don't trust you. We think that you are still a bunch of crazy jihadists, and we are absolutely not going to sit around and wait for you to get your act together and try to attack Israel. And while we are defending ourselves, we are making sure that there are as little as possible assets that can jeopardize the lives of Israelis or endanger Israeli security. Number two is Egypt. And what Israel is doing is signaling through the use of the Air Force and other means that we are not going to tolerate a creep of Turkish forces that we will find them close to our borders. We do not share a geographical border with Turkey, and we have no intention of having Turkish troops on our doorstep. We're not going to allow them to replace the Russians or the Iranians who invaded or took control over Syria before. And what Israel is doing is signaling by striking targets in Hama and in Palmyra, which are two locations where there's reports that there are Turkish troops and so-called advisors present. That is to signal to the Turks that you are not welcome. If you keep yourselves far away from Israeli borders, then that is none of Israel's business. Do not come close to Israel because you are not welcome, and it would be destabilizing. I sure hope that message goes through, and I sure hope that the Turkish leadership has the wisdom to listen to it for the sake of regional stability and for their sake. I think that's the smart thing to do.
Yeah, absolutely. Israel can't afford to swap out the Iranian axis in Syria, then swap in the Erdogan regime there. Jonathan, great breakdown all around, my friend. We will see you again very soon. Jonathan Conricus, folks, again, follow him on X, across social media. He is one of the best. We love having him on. Great breakdown there from Lieutenant Colonel Jonathan Conricus. Folks, again, you can follow him on X and across social media and FDD.org. He's doing incredible work. And by the way, if you like this channel, the Watchman channel, we've got over 1 million subscribers here. Also, check out the Stakelbeck Tonight YouTube channel. Of course, I interviewed Jonathan for tonight's episode of Stakelbeck Tonight on TBN, but we also have a YouTube channel for the show with a lot of great content that you won't see anywhere else. So be sure to subscribe over there as well. And remember, we've got that Watchman merch by popular demand. 50% off right now. Hats, hoodies, t-shirts, mugs. Shop.tbn.org. Visit there and check that out as well. And of course, be sure to subscribe. Until tomorrow, from Dallas, thanks so much for joining us. God bless you. And remember, never hold your peace. Hey everyone, thanks for checking out the Watchman Newscast. Make sure you hit the subscribe button so you never miss an upload, and tap the bell icon so you're notified every time a new video is posted. And don't forget to share your thoughts, insights, and comments below. Thanks for watching. We'll see you back here tomorrow.